It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. It's time for Canonball. We talk to experts about classic albums or albums that should be considered classics, and we find out what makes them great. And listen, some kinds of music everybody agrees on. Nobody says that the Rolling Stones don't belong in the canon. But what about Genesis, or Yes, or Emerson, Lake and Palmer? Who will speak for the prog rockers? Prog rock had and has all the wrong markers for rock and roll authenticity. The music wasn't down and dirty, the songs weren't pop radio short. Sometimes they were downright long.
Classically trained musicians, a lot of them came out of conservatory in England.
And they used weird instruments for rock music. Synthesizers, flutes, horns.
A lot of them loved jazz. They worshiped Charlie Parker and Bill Evans. But they also loved rock and roll.
Rock and roll purists hated progressive rock. The prog rockers threw the blues out the window. They traded raw sexuality for instrumental virtuosity.
Tricky time signatures, noodly solos.
But prog has always had its loyalists. Marc Weingarten and Tyson Cornell are two of them. They're the editors of Yes is the Answer. It's a literary anthology devoted to the best of prog. They say that one landmark album was a blueprint for the entire genre. In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. The album came out in the fall of 1969, but about 500,000 Londoners got their first taste of it that summer in Hyde Park when King Crimson landed a gig opening for the Rolling Stones. It's safe to say the audience will never forget them.
Blowing everybody away with Schizoid Man.
You come out with Schizoid Man as your opening number, you're going to make an impression on people.
It was the first face-melting track on In the Court of the Crimson King.
It's just an onslaught. As a kicker to a record, it doesn't get much better than this.
I mean, it's just remarkably heavy for that time.
Exactly. I never understood what the hell he was talking about lyrically, but I didn't care. Blood rack, barbed wire, politician's funeral pyre. This ain't Stairway to Heaven, bro. This is something else entirely. This is when it gets really nuts. This is the very first time that prog fans just geeked out on an incredibly complicated interlude. It was the template for all prog music. Yes didn't even do this in the first two records, where you just have this kind of like upshift suddenly on a dime. Love it. Can't imagine what it was like for those Stones fans to be sitting there listening to this as the opener for the Stones, you know? I mean, as a 15-year-old listening to this with your Sennheisers on in your bedroom, you're just freaking out.
I just remember trying to figure out this Robert Fripp guitar part.
This guitar
part
part
is
was
so complicated.
crazy. He's like bending notes with a wrench or something. Great drumming. God, listen to Giles drumming on this. I mean, this has zero basis in blues-based music whatsoever. This is completely untethered from all of that tradition. That's why I do think of it as the real first prog rock record. It contains all the touchstones of that genre. Multiple parts within a single song.
Movements.
That kind of virtuosity, the dynamics, the soft into the loud, with Fripp being the X factor because he's like from another planet.
People look at, Jimi Hendrix and Page, Clapton. I mean, people really pushing the limits.
Those guys were all blues-based guys playing blues scales.
Yeah.
Fripp is playing his, I don't know what his own scales. I don't know what he's playing.
Robert Fripp, I mean, he's a guy that really took the advancements of musical technology, the early synthesizers, the sound techniques. Robert Fripp was the person that was paving that road. He was experimenting with those things. He was also known for not caring what people thought about his art.
He's a control freak, basically. But you're right, he is a singular musician. This song's called Moonchild, and it kicks off side 2 of the record. Now, this is a track that a lot of people tend to skip when they listen to the record. They have the remotes at the ready because this is a challenging track. It starts out beautifully like this, the way you're hearing right now, this lovely melody, this kind of like gliding melody, almost like a folk rock tune. And then it kind of devolves into this super abstract, freeform improv for about 12 minutes.
You also hear the influence of movies.
Yeah, that's the other thing about prog. It feels like you're entering a spatial world that has real dimension to it.
It's a little challenging at times. Prog musicians ran into problems after this record. They wanted to do 20-minute versions of tunes, and they were getting difficult reactions from record companies with their royalty structures. If they only had 5 songs on a record, they were only getting paid for those 5 songs. So they devised a wonderful technique of breaking each song into movements, which allowed them to expand their royalty structure. This record, now when you go look at it, they do kind of break things down into movements, but when it came out, it was really just a bunch of long songs. And I think the world of prog learned their lesson.
Fripp would have gotten paid a lot more. Had they used Roman numerals, the full title of this song is The Court of the Crimson King, including the return of the Fire Witch and the dance of the puppets. Little Spinal Tapian, I'm going to say.
But it's that Mellotron.
Love that Mellotron. This is my favorite track of the record.
The rusted chains of prison moons are shattered by the sun. I walk a road, horizons change, the tournament's begun.
And then you had Pete Sinfield, of course, the lyricist, who is writing these, the king, queens, and knave.
Yeah, and Sinfield is the component here that a lot of people don't realize as being very, very powerful because he wasn't on stage with the band.
The cracked brass bells will ring to summon back the Fire Witch to the Court of the Crimson King. I think these lyrics are the instructions to Dungeons and Dragons. I believe that's what this is. That being said, I still love it. It's almost heavy metal in a way. Those big Mellotron block chords, no one had ever done that. It's powerful. It was just a totally fresh approach to rock and roll.
The keeper of the city keys put shutters on the dreams. I wait outside the pilgrim's door with insufficient schemes.
It just conjures up images in your mind's eye all the time, this music.
You get what you want out of it. Everybody gets something different out of it. This is the Gravity's rainbow of music.
The reason why Court of the Crimson King is such an important record is that it was picked up by FM, freeform radio in the States. It was really the first prog record that a lot of people heard. It's a legacy of exploration, of experimentation, of trying new things in rock and roll, expanding the palette of rock. And that's important for a lot of bands, even bands that are in prog rock.
The metal crowd always looks back to King Crimson as being great. All of the Doom, Black Sabbath, I mean, that all pays a lot of homage to this record.
General rock audiences cottoned to this record. It opened the floodgates. Genesis, Yes broke through, Gentle Giant. That's why it's an important prog record, because it became that kind of entry point for a lot of mainstream rock fans. It just said, this is a new approach. This is something else we can do. It doesn't have to be AABA. You know, it doesn't have to be 12-bar blues. It doesn't even have to be the Moody Blues. You know, it could be something else. I love this ending.
Marc Weingarten and Tyson Cornell on what they consider to be the founding document of progressive rock. King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King. They're the editors of Yes is the Answer and Other Prog Rock Tales. It's now available in paperback.